Woo! So this will be something a little bit different, not normally my field of expertise. Then again, neither is the stuff I usually talk about. I'm basically just an arsehole armed with an accent and an opinion, but anyway. I went to see the new Top Gun movie of the weekend and thought it was so good, let's do a video on it. So while I have seen some reviews, people trying to view it through a political lens, naturally, trying to compare it to some Reagan-era nostalgia, all that bollocks, I saw one saying, Maverick is military propaganda. Will you stop with the politics, you miserable bitch, and fuck off? So I want to view the film a little bit differently. Firstly, my compliments to everyone involved in the creation of this film. I thoroughly enjoyed it. It was a great piece of cinema that defied a lot of Hollywood cliches, making a sequel many decades past the original with the same lead who plays his old character very much intact and in many respects improving on the original, all the while keeping to pretty much the same plot is quite the exquisite feat. Well done indeed. That being said, I will do my best to reveal as little of the movie as I possibly can, but what I want to focus on here is more the undercurrent of cultural themes between this movie and the original, as well as these little deft touches that showcase strikingly why I think both movies have done so well. The most obvious one being, don't fuck with the winning formula. Very much a joy to see those involved in this project notice what has made Hollywood movies for the past decade so sterile, plastic, and frankly damn near hostile to its audience. Looked at the original and went, yeah, we're just going to replicate this recipe for success, and seemingly told all the naysayers who disagreed with that idea to fuck off. I don't know if it's because Tom Cruise is older and a seasoned Hollywood man himself, who also was a producer of this movie, but whoever made the call or greenlit the decision to get Tom Cruise to play Maverick like the original and not be this bitter, resentful old man with no redeeming qualities, only to be sacrificed for some modern political bullshittery, hats off to whoever that was. Which brings us to a key original spirit, the underlying aspect to this movie and the original that I think is seldom discussed, very underappreciated, and outright demonized in modern-day society, and that is the wisdom of older men. You have these testosterone-fueled, overconfident youngsters who, exceptional pilots they may potentially become, still don't know everything. In the original, you have Viper, the first trophy winner of the Top Gun class, still besting the youngsters, which goes to show you youth and arrogance is no match for age and experience. Viper, who flew with Maverick's father, sees much of his spirit still burning in the young pilot as did with his old man. As such, he plays the patriarchal father figure to a young Maverick. So, after the event that shakes the once overconfident young Maverick down a peg or two, Viper has the two brief scenes with Maverick where he explains, very stoically, these events come with the territory. Be prepared, it will happen again. Viper has seen some heavy-hitting casualties in his military career, and the stoicism with which he delivers the lessons of cold hard experience provides a sense of authenticity and realism to his character, a man who has taken the experience to heart. Maverick in the new one is tasked with the same gig. He is now the patriarchal father figure to a group of youngsters, and while in the original the Top Gun class isn't trained for any specific mission, this one is, and Maverick is recalled to the school to train the new pilots for what is essentially a suicide mission. So his very unorthodox competitive streak, coupled with his now older age, meshes in really well with the urgency of the mission, as Man and Machine is pushed to the extreme. And much like the original, Cruise this time proves that youth and overconfidence is still no match for age and experience. Yet still the film manages to replicate some of the oldest scenes, but portray them as valuable lessons that Maverick learned while he attended Top Gun himself. Viper's line of, a good pilot is compelled to always evaluate what's happened so we can apply what he's learned, echoes through Maverick's actions. So there's this thread of continuity between the two films. The fact that that part plays perfectly well in both films tells you the wisdom of older men is a timeless cornerstone of human experience. There is rich value in age, and it would behoove the youth to listen and learn from the past. The film respects and pays tribute to the concept of legacy. Honestly, the film damn near deserves 5 stars just for having the balls to do that in this day and age. But there is one seemingly insignificant moment in Maverick that perfectly captures the essence of this movie and exemplifies Maverick's persona to a T. He's standing in front of the youngsters with this thick manual that chronicles every detail of their fighter jets, which he drops in a bin, and essentially tells them, you're all flying the same machine. What makes you exceptional is what you can do. And my God, does our society need to fucking hear that. In an age where equality is the driving force of modern society, where everyone has to be the same bland, boring carbon copy, where anything that makes you unique or different that can somehow make you better, any form of elitism or great strength is demonized and shunned, to have a cultural piece such as this give that ethos a giant fuck-off middle finger and says, fuck you, we are striving to be that elite?
Fuck yes.
Exactly! Straight into my veins all damn day long! Sorry, I got very excited by that. Anyway, more gushing. How does the sequel stack up to the original? Well, first and most importantly, Maverick, much like the original, has no discernible pro-diversity box-ticking political bollocks. It is just a great all-around classic American movie. And for that we say, hallelujah and thank God. Now, Maverick has one obvious advantage in the potential to be better, in that it is a sequel. We know more about the characters, some of their backstory, you can relate more to them, and you understand their actions and motivations that much better. There's that extra layer of richness that only a sequel can provide, and my goodness do the makers of this film make the most of that. For my flavor, I think Maverick bests the original in almost every way. That being said, in my opinion, I think whichever film a viewer will prefer depends on which part of Maverick's life you find more interesting. I really have no complaints with the sequel. Any little niggles I might have is more to do with the setting and limitations of the story and its characters rather than anything else. For example, the original story features Maverick, the cocky but intuitively gifted young pilot's ascending journey and his confrontation with the inevitable tragedy of military life. The shameless wittiness of his pal Goose is very much a cornerstone of his bravado, and their flair of youthful humor is the fuel that powers their spirited antics and accompanies Maverick's excessive confidence. Well, that and it being the weapon of choice when he's chasing skirts. His friendship with Goose is a vital cog in Maverick's character development. When tragedy strikes, the tone of the story changes, and Maverick is stricken with this sense of guilt that manifests in him doubt and uncertainty, and that's when Viper's role as the father figure to the young Maverick emerges. At Top Gun, he goes head-to-head with Val Kilmer's character Iceman, and whereas Maverick is the showboating cocky man of instinct who is willing to bend and break protocol to achieve goals, Iceman is the exceptionally skilled pilot who plays within the rules. His arrogance is more subtle and, dare I say, icy, so there's a nice contrasting balance between the two characters. I wouldn't even call them protagonists and antagonists, it doesn't really suit the story. Rivals is more the appropriate term. After all, like I said, they're on the same team. Whereas in the sequel, the humor of the original is pretty much absent, which makes sense. Our protagonist here is older and seasoned. The mood of the film is more serious than its predecessor, given the age of the protagonist and the urgency of the plot. So that style of humor would feel clunky and out of place, so its omission is in keeping with the theme, very much a credit to the writers. The only thing that is a little off for me is the attitude of Hangman. He is the best the story offers as a sort of antagonist, at least insofar as the young group of pilots is concerned, a rival to Goose's son Rooster. The problem with this dynamic, though, is Rooster and Hangman's presence in the story isn't as center stage as Maverick and Iceman, and you know enough about their personalities and codes of conduct to understand their counterbalancing forces in the original, whereas in the sequel, the audience doesn't know enough about their character's persona for that dynamic between Rooster and Hangman to work in the same way, because their characters are more secondary, so Hangman's arseholeish nature isn't a counterbalance to anything. He comes across as the arsehole in the group more so because the story wanted one. I'm not saying this is objectively good or bad, it's merely an observation of the story when you compare it with the original. This is by no means an attack on Glenn Powell's acting abilities, don't get me wrong. He gives a stellar performance as an asshole. Aside from that, the newer film bests its predecessor in every way. The plot has greater structure. We get told what the crew is training for early on, so the urgency and danger of the mission definitely adds to the sense of drama and excitement when you know what's expected of the young pilots. Whereas the final segment in the original felt a little flat and lifeless for me, Maverick definitely corrects that by giving the final segment more screen time that's littered with gorgeous action sequences and a cheeky little throwback to the original. Cruise's chemistry with Jennifer Connelly is much better here as well, which really isn't saying much to be fair, seeing as there was zero chemistry between Cruise and McGillis in the first film. Their attempt at romance with Kelly McGillis doesn't add anything to the plot or develop Cruise's character in any meaningful way. She's just some lassie meets at a bar. That she ends up being an instructor at Top Gun is merely coincidental. She's but a prop to show how a cocky Maverick would court a woman, and that's about it. Even when she says she's falling for him, the foundation of it seems hollow. There's no sense of weight to it. There may be those that feel differently, but it's a free country, they can be wrong. In the latest one, despite the fact that the relationship is presented with a history, and not from scratch like in the first movie, the hinted past behavioral pattern of the two here makes their relationship seem more affectionate and genuine. And I'm not at all saying that because Jennifer Connelly is still a stunning knockout. And there you have it, folks. Top Gun Maverick gets a glowing endorsement from me. Not only because the film is a much-needed breath of fresh air after a decade of sterile CGI bullshit cracked up by Hollywood, Maverick expertly shows just how to use newer technology to capture real footage, which the film does exceptionally well. But because this movie deserves to be revered as a damn near perfect example of how to do a sequel well. It has its cheesy moments, but hey, it's paying homage to an 80s classic. If it wasn't cheesy, it wouldn't be doing it right. I have been your utensil, and I will see you next time.